risk of developing lung cancer. All right, cigarette smoking. There are a number of genetic factors that can play risk in cancer development. That was something many of you may have seen in your family tree. We also talked about the BRCA mutation, the mutation that suppresses the genes that create proteins that prevent cancers from growing. When that particular gene is mutated, the suppressing action no longer works and it allows cancer cells to grow. Alcohol has been shown to increase risk of a number of types of cancers, including liver cancer and esophageal cancer. Sun exposure, the ultraviolet from sun can penetrate into the nucleus of the cell, affecting the DNA, enabling it to then lead to production of mutated proteins that create mutated tissue, resulting in tumors. And infectious agents, chemicals, can lead to development of cancer. One question I get a lot is, how can I change my diet to reduce my risk of cancer? Many of you see lots of information and misinformation in the media on foods that are superfoods, foods that you should eat, foods that you shouldn't eat. According to the National Cancer Institute, scientists have studied many foods and dietary components for the possible association with increasing or reducing cancer risk. But with few exceptions, studies of human populations have not yet shown definitively that any dietary component causes or protects against cancer. As much as we want to control our risk of developing cancer through diet, you need to know that there is no dietary component that has been shown definitively to protect or prevent cancer. Dysplasia or precancer changes in cells signal the presence of oncogenes, the genes that increase risk of changing structure of cells to increase cancer. Normal cells can become cancer cells. That's what we're talking about in this topic. But before the cancer cells form in body tissues, cells go through a number of abnormal changes called hyperplasia and dysplasia. In hyperplasia, there is an increase in the number of cells in an organ or tissue that appear normal under a microscope. But in dysplasia, the cells look abnormal under a microscope. They're not yet considered cancer, but they are signaling that cancer may be at a higher risk of developing. So these tissue changes may lead to cancerous tumors, or they may not. I know this is really confusing, but this is based on the information that we have. When we were first talking about the carcinogenesis or creation of tumors, at the beginning of that sequence of slides, you saw cells can change and lead to abnormal cells, but that because of various processes, those cells can revert back to normal. This can happen a number of steps along the way. But please understand that hyperplasia is more likely to revert to normal cells than dysplasia. This is something that you need to talk about with your doctor. For example, a woman may find with a pap smear, with the results of her pap smear, that cervical cells have become hyperplastic or developed hyperplasia. There's an increase in number of cells. This would be a reason to go back and have follow-up with your doctor, assuming you have insurance, health insurance, and support. Dysplasia, the doctor might want to have closer surveillance, or you may want to have the cells removed. Certainly, when cancer develops, the chance of reverting is very small, and you have to take measures. We have cancers in our lymphatic system. We talked about the lymph system when we looked at infection and immunity. Lymph is a clear fluid that carries those white blood cells. We talked about T cells and B cells being part of our immune response, and they congregate in lymph nodes. Lymph nodes are tissues that filter viruses, bacteria, and cancer cells. It's where those antigen-presenting cells meet up with the T cells and B cells, but they're also a place where cancer cells may metastasize to and spread throughout the body. And there are types of cancers that can develop in our lymphatic system.